Have you reached a plateau with your endurance training? Is your once beloved hobby of running becoming a chore for you? Are you running the same routes week after week around your town in exasperation? Are you getting sore from constantly pounding the pavement? Okay, that last one did sound a bit off. But what am I getting at here? Oh yeah, pounding the pavement. You know, like running on the roads. Road running, I suppose. Well, for all you amateur runners out there, I'm here to try and sell you an alternative to the drab and dreary world of running on asphalt. An activity I've implemented into my own training and noticed huge improvements in my endurance and top speed fitness, not to mention the newfound drive and enjoyment that I'm getting from my training right now. So without further ado, let's get into the video. Now, as you can see, I'm outdoors and I'm not on or near a road. And if you've not guessed already, I'm here to talk to you about trail running. What is trail running? Well, it's literally just normal running, but on trails or unpaved paths instead of roads. Typically, this means that you end up running through natural environments, such as through forests or fields or over hills or mountains. But for those of you that live in the middle of a busy city, there's hope for you yet, but more about that later. Who's it for? Well, here's the big secret. Anyone. For all of you other amateur runners out there, trail running can seem like a daunting prospect at first. From the outside looking in, the sport looks as though it has a high barrier for entry. Social media is flooded with videos of half human, half mountain goats sprinting up sheer cliff faces in times that I'd be proud of on the downhill. Then there's the kit you need. As opposed to road running, people seem to have the most expensive gear. There's trail shoes, there's barefoot shoes, there's trail poles, there's electrolyte powders, there's running vests, and what else? Oh yeah, the toe socks. Jesus Christ, I forgot about the toe socks. And finally, why should you trail run? Well, this is a trickier question to try and answer. But what I can say is that the changes that I've made over the last few months have left me reinvigorated with passion and enjoyment for the sport of running, whilst also being the fittest that I've been since I won the school 1500 metres at Sports Day in year 11. So if you bear with me, then I'll have a pretty good go at trying to answer that exact question. But first of all, if you're enjoying the video, please drop it a like and consider subscribing. It really helped me out. So, a bit about myself. I am as beginner a runner as it's possible to get. Until I recently competed in a free volunteer ran trail running event in May, I hadn't competed in running since that fateful Sports Day 10 years ago. And between now and then, I pretty much forgot about running. I went to uni, restarted my rugby career, quickly ended my rugby career, and then started devoting myself to powerlifting. I entered a couple of competitions and I even won one. During this time, I grew in weight to 93 kilos and subscribed to the belief that cardio would kill your gains. There wasn't much running during this period. My rugby injuries caught up with me and I eventually went for shoulder surgery in December 2019. Just as I was getting back into the gym and rehabilitating my shoulder, a COVID pandemic hit and gyms closed everywhere. How does this all link to trail running? Well, I promise you I'm getting there. And I also just wanted an excuse to show you my lifting PBs.
Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on.
So, gyms closed, and my options for exercise were getting back into running or starting calisthenics. Well, the shoulder was still pretty dysfunctional and I wasn't particularly bendy, so running it was. My old rugby club all had the same idea, and before I knew it, I was signed up for a solo one-off half marathon as part of a club charity event for Calm. This was all without any proper training and it showed. The run felt horrible. I was broken for days afterwards, but I managed to crank out a time of 1 hour 49 minutes. Lockdown passed, but the running bug stuck around, at least for a bit. My wife's family all had the bright idea of doing another informal half marathon, almost a year to the day to the previous half marathon that I'd done as part of the charity event. Well, now my competitive streak kicked in. It was a race against myself and that previous time I posted of 1 hour 49 minutes. And I didn't just want to beat it, I wanted to smash it. Anyway, the one thing that stood in between me and my new half marathon PB was the training. I started upping my runs from once a week to maybe 3 or even 4 times a week. I was doing fast runs, slow runs, medium pace runs. I'd caught the bug and I just couldn't stop running. That one doesn't sound right either. Anyway, the one thing that I really struggled with was the long runs. Every time I tried to up the distance past that 10k or 6 mile barrier, I felt like I was trudging through mud. Not only physically, because my hips and my knees started aching, but also mentally. I just feel like I couldn't get the distance done. At this time, my runs were mainly fast-paced. They were either at my target half marathon pace or even faster than that. I didn't see the point in going slower, because in my mind, that slow-paced running wouldn't carry over to an improved personal best when it came to race day. I stayed well away from that slower paced training. That was until Lil and I started going on a few training runs with their parents in the months leading up to the big day. They lived on the edge of the Leicestershire countryside and they had a dog, so they preferred running somewhere where the dog could be off the lead. That happened to mainly be in the woods and the fields around their house. Initially, I was reluctant to join them. I preferred to keep to my own road routes, because then I could keep the pace high and my training on track. I did, however, start joining them on the occasional run, and what will surprise absolutely no one out there is how much I started to enjoy those runs. Inevitably, those runs were slower. Not only because we were running as part of a group, but also because of the terrain that we were covering. The surface was often uneven, with muddy puddles and big rocks, and we were up and down hills all the time. And every now and then we had to hop a fence or a stile from one field to the next. What I didn't realise at the time was that I was actually just trail running. Not the ultramarathon running, energy bar chomping and Vaseline applying trail running that most people think of when the sport's mentioned. But I was off-road, I was surrounded by nature, I was on uneven or hilly terrain, albeit very gentle hills, but in my own way, I was trail running, and I was enjoying it. Needless to say, I kept joining them in these long runs, and when Lil and I went back to Nottingham, and we were planning our own long runs from our city centre flat, we'd plan out these runs so that we'd end up off-road as soon as possible. This made mine and Lil's training so much more fun and rewarding. Despite being on that intersection between the urbanised centre of Nottingham and the English countryside, we started to feel separated from that noisy traffic and the busy city centre that had come to define most of our road running. Right, let's fast forward more than 2 years to June 2023, where I'm sitting here talking to you today. That family half marathon came and went, and I'll come back to that in a minute and tell you how I got on and whether or not I was able to beat that time of 1 hour 49 minutes. What I can say is that since that half marathon finished a couple years back, we did keep running, but without a target or a goal in mind, we stepped off the gas a bit. My wife and I then moved to New Zealand in January 2023, and for me, it's been transformative. We've spent so much time exploring the country's incredible landscapes, and subsequently, we've both got back into running, and in particular, trail running. There's an abundance of beautiful trails in stunning locations. I'm already planning on competing in a few different trail running events when I get back to the UK next year. And I know that for me, that will provide me with the focus once more that I know that I need to take my training seriously and get the most enjoyment out of it. I even started a YouTube channel. So, why trail running? Well, I hope that in a very roundabout way, I've started to answer that question. What it did for me was to give me time and space to start enjoying running, particularly longer distance running. And that longer distance running is essential for building a base of aerobic fitness and helping improve your speed and pace over any distance. Not only are you running, but you're also exploring, and you're occasionally hiking and even climbing. You get all the benefits of a hike in the hills. You're exploring the natural world around you, and you're hunting for incredible views. You just do it in half the time of a normal hike. There's nothing more relaxing and mindful to pair with what can sometimes be a boring and longer training run. Secondly, it's allowed me to run slower. As I alluded to earlier, my previous style of training was very primitive and naive. I thought that if my training runs weren't at or faster than my target pace for race day, then they wouldn't be improving my fitness and moving me forwards. When in actual fact, the exact opposite is true. And it did take me some time to understand this. Running trails forces you to go that bit slower, usually due to several different factors. You're running over an uneven surface, usually up and down hills constantly, often over obstacles like fences or fallen trees or large rocks. Also, being surrounded by the natural world, you're a bit more invested in actually looking around you and taking in the scenery as you're running. This slower paced running is hugely beneficial and can help to build your base aerobic fitness, helping you to run further, recover faster, and get injured less. Since coming to New Zealand, I've done no speed work or interval training or anything fancy like that, other than just the 3 or 4 park runs that I've done over a 6-month period since being here, which I tend to run at a slightly faster pace. That being said, by integrating more longer runs and trail runs into my training, not only can I run further, but I also managed a new 5k PB. I've got a whole video about it up here. I was as shocked as anyone that I took over a minute off my previous PB, despite having done no training runs within a minute per mile of the pace that I ended up running on the day. And finally, running frequently on trails tends to increase your longevity and reduce your risk of injury over time. Exclusively road running involves smashing out thousands of steps one after the other on hard paved surfaces. And over months and years of training, that can lead to problems down the line, with hip, knee or ankle injuries or degeneration. Running on trails tends to involve much softer and varied surfaces to run on, which are easier on your joints and helps to build strength and resilience in the tendons and the ligaments of your knees, ankles and hips, helping you to run injury-free well into the future. Even all-time marathon great Eliud Kipchoge, a renowned pavement pounder, does a significant amount of his training on dirt trails or spongy athletic tracks compared to the paved surfaces that he actually competes on. Road running is still an important part of what I do, mainly because it's the most practical and accessible form of training available to most people, including myself. But as soon as I'm going further than 4 or 5 miles, and reaching for the map and trying to find a trail. What I've come to realise quite organically is that trail running is a spectrum. On one end, you could be jogging in your local park on a gravel path, and you're enjoying a bit of trail running. On the other end, you've got people doing ultramarathons through deserts or mountain ranges, with all the expensive gear, lathering Vaseline on all their hot spots and recycling their own urine. Still, just enjoying a bit of trail running. I'm still very much at the beginner end of the trail running spectrum, but I can confidently say that I'm hooked and I'm here to stay. And I would strongly encourage you too to get involved, even if it is just switching one run a month onto an off-road surface somewhere out in nature. And although from the outside looking in, it can sometimes seem like it's a sport with quite a high barrier to entry, with all the specialist gear and equipment that some people have, I'm asking you to not let that put you off. All you need is yourself, a sense of direction, and a decent pair of running shoes. For me, when it comes to the essential trail running gear and habits, as a beginner and someone that's looking to get more involved in the sport, trail shoes get a big tick. As soon as a dirt path or a rocky trail gets even slightly wet, you'll be thankful for the extra grip that these shoes provide. However, running poles, recycling my own urine, and desert ultramarathons? Well, I'm not quite ready for any of that stuff yet, but I'm not ruling anything out for the future. Well, apart from the one obvious thing, toe socks. So, how did I do second time round with that half marathon, once I'd finally managed to get over that mental barrier of running longer distances with the help of my local trails? Well, I smashed my previous time and ended up clocking in at 1 hour 37 minutes. Who would have thought? Running slower and further really does make you faster, and the trail running really helped me do that. But stay tuned for a future video where I might see whether all this extra training that I've been doing has not only improved my 5k PB, but also my half marathon time. Maybe I'll even do a proper race. And as always, if you enjoyed the video, please drop it a like and consider subscribing, and I'll see you again next time.